Hey, want to hear a story? So, Critical Role is celebrating their 10-year anniversary, and frankly, good on them. Critical Role is awesome. We love Critical Role here at Crispy's Tavern, though, like everyone in the universe, they're not without skeletons in their closet. Likely the most famous one is Orion Akaba and his character, Tiberius Stormwind. If you don't know, Orion Akaba is probably the most famous problem player in Dungeons & Dragons history, as he was featured on the first 27 episodes of Critical Role. And while he and his character Tiberius had their fans, myself included, if I'm being honest, looking back, there were definitely some problems. He butt heads with the other players, he was a little confrontational at the table, he may or may not have cheated a few dice rolls, and in episode 27 especially, he had some particularly cringe moments.
As Vex is saying this, Tiberius is getting a half check.
A lot of people don't like episode 27 of Critical Role Campaign 1. It's arguably the worst episode of the entire series. And after episode 27, Critical Role and Orion Akaba would part ways. Likely for both in-game reasons and more likely out-of-game reasons, as Orion Akaba had his fair share of drama in his real life to take care of. All those factors culminated together in the brand and the person going in separate directions. And it was almost definitely for the best for everyone involved. This is not a video about Tiberius Stormwind, though. This is a video about a critter. Now, most critters, when looking at Tiberius Stormwind, worst case scenario, they were fans of the character and bummed that he left. Though those people were almost definitely sated during Tiberius Stormwind's funeral in Critical Role Campaign 1. A very tasteful send-off that I think did a good job at wrapping up the character's story, despite everything that happened with the cast and Orion Akaba. I think that scene was enough to sate the appetites of any Tiberius fans and give them some closure. But there was one fan in particular, one man who, for the past 3 years, has not been satisfied and has had no closure. For 3 years, he has dedicated himself to getting Orion Akaba back on Critical Role, uploading a whole series of rant videos, entire essays, trying to convince the public that Orion Akaba deserves to be back on Critical Role and that Matt Mercer is an unjust man who has punished Orion Akaba for crimes that were unjustly prosecuted. It's all very dramatic, and I haven't really had an excuse to talk about this. I haven't had a reason to talk about this. This guy isn't exactly making huge waves, but recently his videos actually have been moving through the algorithm and a lot of critters have been seeing them. I've seen those same Critical Role fans commenting on his videos saying stuff like, oh, this is definitely satire, this is definitely a troll. There's no way anyone actually believes this stuff. And guys, I'm sorry to report, but this is not satire, this is not a troll. So, a story of parasociality, weird obsessions, and Critical Role is there too. Sounds like fun. So, without further ado, what the hell happened? At a baseline here, I'm censoring this guy's face, I'm censoring this guy's name. We'll call him Jeremy. He has a lot of Jeremy energy, if you know what I mean. Okay, but you might be wondering, Crispy, how'd you even find Jeremy? Where'd this guy even come from? Well, it was last year. I was moving through the internet as I normally do, and I found a playlist somehow randomly recommended to me called My Difficult Conversation with Ginny D. And I was like, what? What's this? So I open up the playlist and I see a 5-video series made by Jeremy about a conversation he had with Ginny D. And by conversation, he actually means she replied to one of his YouTube comments. And because of that reply, where she gave him some laughing, crying emojis, he made a 5-video series and dedicated an entire website to archiving the screenshots of the conversation. If you're wondering, by the way, what comment she was replying to, well, here it is. Come on, why dump on a 23-year-old movie exactly at the time Hasbro is trying to fix the problem? Are you purposefully trying to break ties with Hasbro and never get invited back to D&D coverage going forward? If so, well done. If not, why? Really, why? This is cruel! This was a comment left on Ginny D's video about the 2000 D&D movie. You know, the bad one. I guess he was really upset that she didn't like that movie, even labeling her behavior so far as cruel. And he would go on to make 5 more videos talking about her in a very concerning, very parasocial manner. I thought this was hilarious, so I made an episode of Tavern Adjacent about it and moved on with my life. Though, Jeremy never left my mind. Seriously, if I ever feel dumb, I might just pop on a Jeremy video, because there's no way I'm ever going to be dumber than this.
It's okay for you to have fun in certain things in life. D&D isn't one of them. Hasbro makes $5 billion a year. That's chump change, right? It's nothing. Communists up on Twitter are like, oh, how dare you make $5 billion?
American King Donald Trump defeated Wonder Woman.
But for the most part, I forgot about Jeremy. It's been a whole year, but he popped back up on my radar because while scrolling through YouTube again, I saw one of his videos, specifically about Orion Akaba and Critical Role. And I saw that he had another entire playlist of 17 videos dedicated to Orion Akaba. I mean, it was 16 videos until an hour ago because he's just uploaded another one. This series started 3 years ago, back when Legend of Vox Machina was first picking up steam. Jeremy saw that Orion and his character Tiberius were left out of the animated series for obvious reasons. Tiberius Stormwind is at best a controversial character, and on top of that, his inclusion just wouldn't really make much sense for the narrative, so the Critical Role cast decided to not include him in the series. In fact, they had an entire portion of their Q&A dedicated to exclusively saying, look, we are not bringing in Tiberius Stormwind or Orion Akaba, end of story. Jeremy starts out the series of videos not trying to get Tiberius back on the show, but just empathizing with the guy.
I think we just need to take a moment and have a moment of sympathy for Orion Akaba because he missed a massive opportunity.
It's clear that Jeremy sympathizes with Orion missing out on the big experience of being on Critical Role. Though even in this first video, the most normal of the batch, where he's simply empathizing with a man who clearly lost out on a big opportunity, some of the more strange behavior, it's already peeking through. Right at the end, he goes on an utter rant about Sam Riegel, as he puts it, the worst player on Critical Role, a man who is dragging Matt Mercer down, and you know, that's his opinion. He's allowed to have it, though we'll see this hatred of Sam Riegel especially, as well as the rest of the cast, expand over time. This was just the first video in this 3-year saga. His next few videos are dedicated to Matt Mercer and his found family. This is where the parasocial stuff starts to get into play. He sees Matt Mercer and the Critical Role cast as a family, and he starts to theorize about their relationship. You see, he sees that Matt Mercer is dragging the Critical Role cast to success. They're all clearly incompetent, and Matt's the only one doing right by them, and he's asking himself, why? Why would Matt stick with these clearly incompetent people? It's not because they're like, you know, friends or something. It's because Matt, in his Hollywood mindset, has chained himself to this family that you choose.
Was that Matthew Mercer was in a very Hollywood situation, which would make a ton of sense. And he has no limits of what he will do for them, and he will carry them on his back. He's carrying 7 people on his back. And I'm like,
I really wish I was making any of this up. But Jeremy's point in this video is not to point out the chains that Mercer has bound himself with. He's actually trying to point out that Mercer can break these chains, because if he kicked out Orion Akaba, that means he could kick out anyone on the Critical Role cast, right? I mean, Sam Riegel, Taliesin Jaffe, as he names Taliesin Jaffe, these people who are utterly useless to the cast, they can clearly be removed too, and they should be. If Orion goes, then Sam Riegel and Taliesin Jaffe, they go right along with him. And the Critical Role show would be all the better for it.
We're getting rid of Riegel, we're getting rid of Taliesin Jaffe. I've tried to watch this stuff. There's 7 people. They're all squawking and making jokes and cursing. And
this is going to escalate. At this point, we're we're only 3-4 videos in. It does get a little bit more sane after Super Geek Mike posted his extensive and famed video covering the Tiberius Stormwind situation and why Orion Akaba was kicked off the show. In fact, Jeremy even agrees. Orion Akaba did this to himself. He had a lot of problem player behaviors.
Ain't nobody's fault but Orion Akaba's, right? Like, and that's the end of it.
But that understanding is gonna fade away with the next few uploads. You see, we're about to escalate very, very quickly. Orion Akaba is no longer just a guy who was kicked off a niche internet show. He is a symbol of the evangelical Christian principle of Christ-like terrestrial redemption. Orion Akaba can be redeemed by Matt Mercer, and through that redemption be made greater. Matt Mercer has the opportunity to save this man and to pull him out of obscurity, to give him the redemption that he deserves. And oh my God, this escalated fast, didn't it?
Right, my redemption was in my supernatural and terrestrial redemption rested in the hands of Jesus Christ. I have been given that redemption. Orion Akaba has not been allowed to go through a terrestrial redemption arc. Right? He is trapped. He is trapped in the void of Matthew Mercer's power.
You gotta understand, I'm watching all this like all in one day. So I go from just, oh yeah, I understand why Orion was kicked off, feel kind of bad for him, I hate the rest of the Critical Role cast, they all suck, but I feel bad for him, to straight up, Orion Akaba is a figure deserving terrestrial redemption a la evangelical Christian beliefs. What? This obviously would continue to escalate. How, you ask? Well, because Matt Mercer obviously did not give Orion Akaba his terrestrial redemption by inviting him back on the show. Orion is notably absent from Campaign 3. Jeremy would continue, because now that Matt Mercer has refused to give Orion his redemption, it's clear that Matt Mercer is in truth a monster.
Is it appropriate to call Matthew Mercer anymore, or his true name, Matthew Merciless?
You know, the best part is he really thought he was doing something there. Like, you can't see his face because I'm blurring him, but his expression is really like a proud one. Like, yeah, I came up with that line. It's so good. And this would continue. He has an utter hatred of not just Matt Mercer, but the rest of the Critical Role cast. These next few videos get progressively more aggressive. Matt Mercer has refused to bring Orion Akaba back on, and that proves that he is a man without mercy, without empathy. He has left Orion behind. And now, to Jeremy, Orion is no longer a guy who messed up, who was a problem player. Now, his tune has changed. Years later, Orion is now the reason Critical Role was even successful in the first place.
Because Critical Role, every single one of them, are all millionaires, and they would not be millionaires without Orion Akaba. 66% of the reason that Critical Role succeeded is Orion Akaba, okay?
Matt Mercer is the only person holding this all together, and Orion needs to return to bring salvation to the Critical Role cast, because he is the reason they were successful in the first place. Ignoring the fact, obviously, that Critical Role blew up after Orion already left. These videos would continue to escalate until this very morning, where he posted a video claiming that Orion Akaba is doomed to die, and that death would be the responsibility of Matt Mercer.
Matthew Mercer is like, hey, today is my day to do nothing for Orion. I wonder if today is the day he will find his dumpster and freeze to death in the night, even though I use his work to promote and gain myself wealth every day and have done it for 10 years. I want nothing for him and everything for me and my friends.
It's a lot, and who knows where it's going to go from here. I mean, he posted today, so there's no saying that he's not going to continue to go down this rabbit hole later on. And these videos have started to gain notice from critters, and he's not happy about it. He's not happy that people are trying to point out, like, look, Orion Akaba was a problem player. In fact, he uses people saying Orion dug his own grave as part of his fantasy. The Critical Role fans and Matt Mercer and the cast, they want Orion to die. So what happened? How did we get here? Well, obviously, I don't know Jeremy, and I'm not going to theorize about his personal life. I actually did see some comments theorizing that, oh, this guy sounds like a problem player who really wants Orion to be redeemed because he wants to be redeemed too. And look, I don't know, nor do I care if that's true. Honestly, Jeremy is not really the point of this video. Tiberius is not really the point of this video. I'm using Jeremy as my example. I'm using the situation as my example because this is something I've seen more and more in both just the internet and specifically in the D&D community. We're developing a parasocial problem, and it is getting worse. Well, before we talk about parasociality, though, let's talk about something nice. Today's sponsor! This week's videos are sponsored by CZEPEKU tokens. This past year, I swapped my entire token library to use CZEPEKU tokens in my D&D games, and I could not be happier. Not only is the art absolutely gorgeous and so customizable, but also you get an insane amount of value for your subscription. I mean, there are so many services that give you like a token a month, whereas CZEPEKU tokens are uploading 5 tokens at a time, each of which has expansive customization options that allows you to reuse tokens very often and still create unique creatures. Yes, CZEPEKU are typically known for their super inexpensive and expansive map library, but slowly, CZEPEKU tokens is becoming just as good for me, if not even better. If you guys are interested, you can head down into the description down below or to the pinned comment where you can click buy a link so that you can grab CZEPEKU tokens or CZEPEKU maps on their Patreon. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to CZEPEKU for sponsoring today's episode. And without further ado, let's get back to the tea. Parasociality. When one believes they are friends or just generally have a close relationship with somebody they don't really know, from a celebrity to a voice actor to a YouTuber to a podcast host, someone who believes that these people on the internet, on the air, they are their friend. It's pretty clear to see how Jeremy's situation with Orion is a parasocial relationship. He wants to save Orion. He has imposed this story upon this man who Jeremy does not know. Jeremy doesn't know Orion. He's never met Orion, but Jeremy still feels the need to save Orion. He's given Orion a story about his fall from grace, a story about him losing his fame, his money, losing his life, a story about redemption, and it's Jeremy's job to ensure that that story comes true. And yeah, that is a concerning level of commitment to a man you don't know. And furthermore, a concerning amount of hatred for people that you don't know. This guy doesn't know Orion, so he certainly doesn't know Matt Mercer and the cast. And placing Orion's life into their hands, hell, into the hands of the fans too, that is concerning. Especially since, as far as we know, Orion himself has moved on from this whole situation. And as more critters respond to his comments trying to correct him, I think it only radicalized him further. I know radicalized is kind of an extreme word to use in this case, but with parasocial relationships, that is how it starts. It starts with something small. Like, hey, me and this YouTuber, we have a lot in common. Oh, hey, me and this YouTuber, we could have a lunch together. We'd get along. Hey, me and this YouTuber, we could be friends. Like, we could be best friends. And then it ends with me and this YouTuber, we are best friends. It happens constantly. And guys, this is not just a problem for YouTubers and Twitch streamers. I know a lot of people think to themselves, ugh, why should I be concerned that Valkyrie almost got attacked in a park because of a stalker? Ugh, not my problem. But guys, it goes both ways. The way we normalize parasocial relationships, the people who fall into that, they're hurt too. They're hurting themselves. It is unhealthy to develop these kind of relationships with people you don't know. And also, frankly, I feel like we should care that content creators are having these relationships thrust upon them. We almost are pushed into accepting it, treating it as a good thing when it's not. It makes me uncomfortable too. I am a small content creator in the grand scheme of things, and I have had to deal with people pushing my boundaries in really uncomfortable ways. It starts here. It starts with stuff like Jeremy's video series, an addiction to a dude you do not know, an evangelical devotion to a person who doesn't know you, and it escalates from there. I think it's important to point out when things like this happen, because they are happening more and more, and I think it's high time we put a stop to it. But in any case, if you guys enjoyed this parasocial episode of Critical Failure, you might enjoy our last episode of Critical Failure. We covered a much more famed situation with Pro Jared and Dice Camera Action. It's linked in the cards. But before you go, please leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content when it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own suggestions or thoughts, you can go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. You don't know to let me know you made it at the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell. Okay.